Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into something that literally affects every single one of us, and that is fundamentally transforming how we process our most painful experiences. Let's be real for a second. We all carry around some kind of emotional baggage, right? Whether it's a massive career setback, a brutal breakup, or just a really deep betrayal. Those past hurts, they have a sneaky way of lingering. But what if we could actually strip away all that emotional overwhelm that completely paralyzes us and swap it out for pure clinical objectivity? By the end of our time together today, we're going to outline exactly how to stop feeling like a helpless victim of your past and instead step fully into becoming the absolute sovereign of your future. It's a complete game changer, and I am so pumped to share this framework with you. Okay, let's dive right into this. I've got a question for you. Is your past a ghost, or is it a signboard? You see, most of us naturally treat our painful negative experiences, our trauma, kind of like terrifying monsters hiding in the dark. For instance, think about a time a major project of yours just totally flopped. Every time you try to start something new, the memory of that failure floats up like a ghost, whispering that it's going to happen all over again. It literally freezes you in your tracks, and we just stay stuck in that fearful state unless we consciously decide to step out of it. But what if we completely flip that perspective? Like, what if these events aren't hauntings at all? What if they're actually incredibly vital data points that we absolutely need to build a better future?
So, to get us there, here's our literal roadmap for this explainer. First, we'll hit the highway of trauma. Next up, the victim trap. Third, we'll look at compensatory malware. And finally, we'll wrap up with the sovereign protocol. We've got a super clear drive ahead to reboot our mental systems.
All right, let's kick things off with Section 1, the highway of trauma. We really need to start looking at traumatic events differently. They are absolutely not ongoing, active monsters constantly chasing you down. Instead, think of them as static pieces of highway architecture. So the crucial takeaway here is this. Trauma is simply a data point marking a dangerous zone in reality. You see, it helps to understand that our primitive brains are, well, actually a little out of date. Biologically speaking, we're still wired to treat a highly critical email from our boss exactly like a saber-toothed tiger lunging out of the bushes. Our nervous system just floods with panic, and our whole mental framework basically crashes. But let's think about this logically for a second. When you're driving down a highway at night and you suddenly spot a sign that says hazardous curve ahead, reduce speed, your nervous system doesn't collapse into a full-blown panic attack, right? You don't just slam on the brakes, stop the car, stare at the sign, and start screaming about how completely unfair the road layout is. That would be ridiculous. Instead, you read the data, you adjust your steering vector, give the brakes a little tap, and safely navigate the terrain. By building on this driving concept, we can fundamentally change our reaction to pain. By consciously identifying, naming, and objectifying your past trauma, you literally strip it of its emotional horror. It completely ceases to be this invisible ghost and transforms into manageable data. You look at it, you acknowledge its exact coordinates on your map, you extract the operational lesson, and then you continue driving forward, just with a bit more alertness. Think about a business deal that went totally sideways, or maybe a really toxic relationship. If you view that experience as a hazard sign, something like, warning, misaligned values cause crashes, you suddenly have this incredibly practical, unemotional rule for your future. You take the right action and make way better choices moving forward, rather than just sitting there, stalled out and frozen on the side of the road. Moving right along to Section 2, the victim trap. Now, we need to examine the specific mindset trap that actually stalls us out on this highway, keeping us locked in fight, flight, or freeze mode and just burning through immense cognitive capital. And this brilliantly illustrates the difference. Over on the left, we've got the to-me trap. When the human brain is locked into believing that a catastrophe or some brutal betrayal happened to them, they register themselves as a totally passive victim of a chaotic, unyielding universe. The primitive brain looks at that historical event and sees an ongoing, unresolvable hazard, which keeps the person permanently trapped in a defensive crouch. But check out the right side, the for me override. Shifting your narrative to this happened for me is a massive psychological shift. Now, you're not sugarcoating the pain, and you're absolutely not excusing whoever or whatever caused it. Instead, you're aggressively declaring that the trauma was a brutal, real-world penetration test of your life's operating system. It exposed a critical vulnerability in your perimeter. Maybe it was poor screening mechanics, a lack of physical capacity, overextended trust, or just a naive assumption of safety. By treating the event as a harsh warning sign, you convert the damage into a powerful, lasting blueprint for your own future immunity.
Which brings us to Section 3, compensatory malware.
This brings up a really fascinating question, doesn't it? Why is it so incredibly hard to just make that mental shift? Well, it's because our survival hardware can sometimes get stuck running obsolete emergency scripts. Let's break down this neuroevolutionary analysis for a second. When your survival hardware goes into flight, fight, or freeze mode during a traumatic event, your brain undergoes this rapid neuroplastic remodeling. Basically, to survive the immediate threat, it frantically deploys emergency defense mechanisms. We adopt what are known as maladaptive compensatory patterns just to overcome that immediate pain. Think of it kind of like wearing a really heavy, rigid cast to heal a broken arm. That cast is absolutely crucial to survive the immediate injury and stabilize the bone. But if you never take the cast off after the bone actually heals, your arm is eventually going to wither and atrophy. The real tragedy here is that long after the actual threat has vanished, the brain just keeps running that old emergency script. So what was super beneficial temporarily suddenly turns into a maladaptive compensatory pattern that causes some serious long-term harm.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how the adaptation loop maps out. Yesterday's survival tactic literally becomes today's malware. In that first column, we see the short-term benefits of these patterns: raw survival, numbing extreme stress, and avoiding pain. And hey, when you're right in the middle of a crisis, those are incredibly useful tools. But take a look at the second column, the long-term harm. This is the malware in action. It looks like consistently overeating processed food just to numb out daily stress, or maybe avoiding the gym completely because of a deeply ingrained fear of getting injured. Consider the dynamic of avoiding pain by isolating yourself. In the short term, sure, pushing people away means nobody can hurt or betray you again. But over years and years, that exact same defense mechanism isolates you from high-value peers, meaningful relationships, and the growth you desperately need. You're basically running a script designed for an emergency that is long over.
And that leads us to our final stop, Section 4, the Sovereign Protocol. This is the absolute climax of our explainer. We're finally going to learn exactly how to clear the code, to stop freezing on the highway of life and permanently deactivate that fearful state of past trauma. You have to run an intentional nervous system reboot. Think of it as a literal software update for your brain. Here is the 3-step sovereign de-escalation protocol. Step 1, objectify and name the signboard. Step 2, audit your compensatory malware. And Step 3, step out of the freeze frame. By following these 3 steps, you can intentionally clear all that obsolete code from your operating system. Let's walk through exactly how to execute this right now. Okay, step 1 is you have to stop running from the memory of your most intense friction points. You need to sit down in total isolation with your journal and execute a clinical naming ceremony. You're going to write down the event using incredibly dry, matter-of-fact terminology, stripping it completely of narrative labels like good, bad, evil, or betrayal. Notice the specific wording in the example we have here. In 2018, my core business enterprise was sabotaged due to my failure to execute strict legal audits on my partners. Do you notice that clinical objectivity? There's actually a biological reason for doing this. By removing emotionally charged words, you literally stop your brain's amygdala from firing off panic signals every single time you recall the event. You neutralize the memory. By doing this, you've successfully taken the monster out of the dark and mounted it right on the wall as a highly visible, incredibly useful warning sign. Moving to step 2, this requires you to audit your compensatory malware. You must ruthlessly inspect your current daily habits, your behaviors, and your lifestyle choices. In fact, I want you to ask yourself right now, think about something you did today. Maybe it was skipping a meeting, avoiding a difficult conversation, or heck, maybe spending 2 hours doom scrolling on your phone. Are those actions actually moving you forward? Or are they defensive scripts you're running today that were built to protect a broken version of you from 5 years ago? You have to expose the loop. You must boldly declare that the emergency is officially over and deliberately delete that obsolete software. Finally, we hit step 3. Step out of the freeze frame. The next time a real-world trigger rattles your perimeter and tries to force your nervous system into a freeze response, you need to enforce an immediate somatic grounding sequence. Actually, let's just do this together right now. I want you to break your normal viewing habits for just a second. Take a really deep double inhale through your nose and let out a long, slow sigh through your mouth. This simple physical action instantly switches your autonomic nervous system from sympathetic panic straight into parasympathetic control. You can look directly at the trigger, identify it purely as an old highway sign on your personal map, and execute your sovereign, calculated move with total, unshakable calm. So I want to wrap up this explainer by leaving you with one final provocative question to think about. What old highway sign do you need to look at today? It is absolutely time to stop treating your past like a ghost that's out to haunt you and start treating it like the incredible survival data that it truly is. Extract the lesson, tap the brakes if you need to, but always, always keep driving. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I really hope this framework helps you take the wheel with complete and unshakable calm.